everybody, what is up? It is Cass here today, and I want to say happy holidays before we start. It is almost Christmas, and I'm very excited. We have 13 days left. Can you believe it? So, with that being said, I am going to be kind of remaking a video I've done in the past. Hi, bud. I know I've spoken a lot about leopard geckos in the past, and I mean, come on. They're absolutely amazing little creatures. Who wouldn't want to talk about them all the time? But, you know, care standards change, and as time goes on, things evolve. So I think it's about time that we update that. So this is going to be my 2025-2026 care guide for leopard geckos. I have been keeping them for like 15 years now. Oh dear God. It's been a while. I've kept them, I've bred them, I've rehabilitated them, I've rescued them. So this is just going to be the care guide that I've experienced and that I've made an entire little sheet on. It's really cute. I'll leave it right here somewhere. Without further ado, let's go ahead and break out some geckos and start talking about them because they are absolutely amazing. And you kind of really need a leopard gecko in your life. Even if you're not a reptile person, you need one. Hear me out. You need one. This is why you need a leopard gecko. All right, so first things first, this little angel right here, this is Juliet. She is some sort of albino. She's really, really cute and she's really, really fun. She was very skittish when I got her. I got her as a juvenile and she wasn't handled very much at all whatsoever. So she was very, very spookable, very flighty, but I think we've come quite far given that she hasn't jumped off my hand yet. So that's quite lovely. This is basically right now, this segment. It's just going to be a little overview about leopard geckos and just a little bit of information about them. So, like I said, Juliet right here, she is probably about 2 years old. Their average lifespan is about 15 years. Can be a little bit more, can be a little bit less. Depends on how you, as a keeper, take care of them as well as genetics. So there's that. I've had geckos live well over 11 years, so that's just my personal experience. Once you reach about 10, they start to become little old people, and, you know, when old people start to deteriorate, they go down fast, especially when it comes to injuries. These guys are just so small. It's so easy to injure them. Couple of other quick fun facts. They are from a very rocky and sandy environment. Their typical adult size is between 50 and 100 grams. I'm not sure how much she weighs, but my scale is broken. Last time I weighed her, she was like 50-something grams. Another thing is that they are a strict insectivore with their food. You can't feed them fruits, you can't feed them veggies. They just can't digest that. We'll talk more about that later because that's actually kind of cool how their little digestive systems are. But the final little overview statement that I'm going to make right here with Juliet is that these are not communal animals. You cannot house them together, and I feel like this needs to be in the beginning of the video because it's so, so important. These guys are not communal. They don't want friends. Your geckos are not friends. They don't want to live in an enclosure together. They need their own enclosures. So, for the welfare of your little guy, don't house your geckos together. Keep your little guys in separate enclosures where they can live the best life without worrying about being injured or outcompeted for food. So there's that. She's absolutely precious. And we're gonna go ahead and move on. Oh, sorry, baby. We're gonna go ahead and move on to the next segment right now. So here she is. Hi, baby girl. I'm not sure if the camera's focusing, but there she is. Alrighty, so in this next segment right here, we have Romeo, and Romeo has an interesting story of her own, but I digress right there real quick. So the next segment is going to be about husbandry. And while a 20-gallon long enclosure is very widely accepted as the minimum enclosure size for a single gecko, and it should only be a single gecko, you should always strive to provide the most enriching and best environment for your pet, especially if you are purchasing it as a pet-only animal. You have no intentions of breeding them or anything like that. It is your responsibility to provide the best life that you possibly can for these little creatures. So I always start even with juveniles as a 20 long, and then we upgrade from there depending on how their temperament is, if they're more of a hiding creature or if they're someone who kind of maybe explores more, because I've had some of those that just like climb like crazy. But with that being said, with the enclosures, they do very, very well on both a sterile environment, which is just like paper towels and easily cleanable hides and water bowls, to all the way up to a bioactive enclosure. It has been reproduced multiple times on YouTube. There's plenty of videos that you can watch, plenty of people that I follow that you can watch that have made some absolutely incredible enclosures for their animals that are completely bioactive. But the main thing is to make sure that these guys don't stay moist. So as long as your substrate isn't soppy, isn't soaked, isn't going to provide all that excess humidity, because keep in mind these are an arid animal, as long as you keep your enclosure less humid, typically they do well on most substrates. But the most common that I see would be like cocoa fiber, an ABG mix, or then again paper towels or newspaper. Some of the optional things that I personally like to add in my bioactive enclosures specifically would be both climbing and burrowing spots. You can make formed burrows and dig those out for them to be able to just hide and dig into and enjoy. And then I also like building supported, fully structurally sound climbing spaces that aren't too high off the ground. That way they can have that kind of multi-level experience in their enclosure without having to risk injuring themselves or be in the wild where, they could possibly get eaten by another animal. So there's that. This is little Romeo. And I guess we should talk about Romeo's story. I know I've said it before on YouTube, but Romeo was surrendered to me. I am a rescue partner with a certain pet store, and they had hit me up saying that Romeo was available and needed a home. Some little boy surrendered them, thought I was male. So Romeo is like 5 years old. Romeo's a little older, but Romeo was also quite thin when she came to me, and she's actually a she. She was quite thin, kind of hard to handle, but now she's just an absolute sweetie pie, and she slams those worms like it's nobody's business, let me tell you. So this is Romeo, and she's just so pretty. I think she's just a normal, nothing too crazy, but it just goes to show how crazy different these animals can be within the same species, but from morph to morph. So there's that. Alright, so the next segment that we are going to be talking about is the diet of the leopard gecko. As I stated earlier, leopard geckos are strict insectivores. That means these guys, they only eat bugs. That is it. They don't eat veggies. They don't eat fruit. They only eat bugs. Their common diet in the reptile hobby and locally found at pet stores would be things like crickets, dubia roaches, mealworms, and superworms. Treats can be offered, so that just goes to play into the enrichment and offering a varied diet. Common treats in the hobby would be waxworms or lateralis roaches, which are red runner roaches. The reason why I say that lateralis roaches are better off as a treat is literally just because local to me, they're harder to get. That is it. They're more of a treat for me because I have to go to a reptile expo to get them or find a local breeder, and they're just not that common out here, to be honest. But that depends on where you are, how many local pet stores, how many reptile specific stores, how many expos you have for a year, and how accessible they are to you. As for waxworms, they're only a treat because of their fat content. They, if fed regularly, can cause obesity, so it's just better to be safe and keep them as a treat only. And also, they die super quick, is what I've noticed. But leopard geckos, of course, as I said, should never, ever, ever have fruit or vegetables. Their digestive systems are not built to extract the nutrients from plant matter. This can make them extremely sick. And of course, that's not what you want. You don't want them to become malnourished or even have some severe stomach issues because they're being fed the wrong thing. And the final point when it comes to the diet is that they should always have fresh, clean water at all times, no matter what. Make sure that that bowl is clean because bacteria builds up very quickly. So it's good to replace it at the very least once a day. I try to do it twice a day. So there's just that. Make sure that they always, always, always have clean, fresh water. our next segment is going to be enclosures, courtesy of r/bioactive. All the Redditors are going to be, on the screen. But these are some good examples of some bioactive enclosures. They range in size. There's a couple that are 40s, and there's a couple that are 20s. But as I had stated earlier in the video, in a normal pet home where you're just trying to have a basic enclosure that you can deck out for virtually the entirety of your gecko's life, a 20-gallon long is going to be the bare minimum. There should be a hot side maintained with a heat pad that you can get at any old reptile store, and a thermostat. That is the vital part right there. A thermostat. Thermostats are vital. They prevent fires, they keep animals safe, and they are absolutely mandatory when using any sort of heating element, really. That should be set to 90 degrees, and the heat pad should only cover about a third of the floor of the enclosure so the animal can thermoregulate more easily. Ideally, you'll have 2 or more different places to hide. 3 is really what I would say is the bare minimum. A hot hide, a cold hide, and then a humid hide. I keep the humid hides in pretty much the whole time, just because you never know when they're going to go into shed, or if they just need a little bit of extra humidity. You never know. But that's my personal opinion. The humid hide should have sphagnum moss or bedding that is kept relatively moist. That way they can get that extra humidity if they need it. And again, as stated earlier in the video, these are solo animals unless they are breeding, and they do not benefit from living communally. Each gecko that you have in your household should have its own individual habitat away from other geckos. They should not cohabitate at all. Throwback to the diet section. A gecko should always have a water bowl, a clean, fresh water bowl that is easy to clean so that you maintain it, as well as a food dish if you're feeding worms. Also, when you are using substrate in the case of a bioactive enclosure, using a rock or a tile as the feeding area is a good way to mitigate the risk of consuming bedding. So just to put that into perspective right there, that's something to think about. And on to the final category, my friends. I often say that leopard geckos are one of the best beginner reptiles, even though if you're getting a reptile, you need to do your research regardless. These aren't a cat or a dog. They're very, very different. They have different requirements, but leopard geckos are easily one of the best pet reptiles that you could possibly get for beginners, but just in general. They're just so interesting. They have so much variety within their species, like I had said, but they're also just so different when it comes to individual. And this is where handling is going to kind of take a play. These creatures from a very, very young age are very, very receptive to handling. Yeah, they might be a little bit flighty, or they might scream a little bit when they're babies, but typically after, a few weeks of handling, they settle down pretty well, and that's a very quick process. If you consistently and properly handle your animal on a regular basis, they're going to be puppy dog tame like this. Literally. This is not the exception to the rule. This is pretty much the rule. So, proper supervision looks like supporting the entirety of their body, making sure that they don't flop around, bend awkwardly, that they aren't unsupported, making sure that they don't take any drops or falls, because those can really severely injure or unalive your animal, unfortunately. These are very, very small, fragile creatures, and keep in mind their bones are quite small. Don't squish them. Don't let them interact with other pets. For example, my dog is walking around down on the floor, and I'm up here with the gecko. The gecko's not at dog level, even though I know my dog is absolutely incredible with everything in this house. The amount of animals that she has in this house, she's fine. But it's still that risk. If she happens to put her paw on the gecko, if she happens to scratch the gecko, if she happens to lick the gecko and the gecko gets sick, these are the kind of risks that you need to think of before getting a leopard gecko. These aren't animals that should be interacting with very young children or other animals in your household. Like I said, these are a very solo creature. They want to just stay and interact with you, but even then, they kind of just want to hang out in their enclosure. You see that Romeo right here? She's just chilling on my shoulder. This is what they do. They just seek warmth, and that's really, really amazing. But with that being said, another little talking point is this nice, bulbous, fat, beautiful tail right here. These animals can drop their tails, which is kind of why I say they're not really good for small children, because if a small child happens to pull on that tail, squeeze that tail too hard, or if even that tail happens to get stuck in decor in the enclosure, that tail can be dropped, and that's a really, really big load on the animal, health-wise. It's a lot of energy just to rebuild a small portion of that tail and to rebuild that fat storage, because keep in mind, that's where they store their fat. So you lose all of that excess fat when you drop that tail, and it's never going to look the same. So be very, very cautious there. These are very, very fragile creatures. Even if they're an amazing starter pet, they're still small, they're still fragile. They got small bones, small organs, and cute little tails, and they're very, very easy to hurt. So that's lovely. I've only experienced it once in my leopard geckos, and I've had a lot of leopard geckos. And when she was actually one of my first leopard geckos, when she had dropped her tail, it was because she got her tail stuck in a piece of decor, and she dropped a portion of her tail. When it grew back, it looked like a nub, and thus her nickname, Nubby, came to fruition. So that's just kind of something to think about. These guys, you can really hurt them by accident just by mishandling them. But let me tell you, they will tell you when you are mishandling them. Of course, a last-ditch effort being dropping their tail. But they can run and jump and try to get away from you. They can bite. And they also do this adorable little thing. I'll see if I can find a video from my YouTube channel from way, way back in the day, like 6 years ago, something like that, of one of my old geckos screaming, because it's absolutely adorable. But they do it to say, hey, get away from me, leave me alone. So those are a couple things to think about. But if you are willing and able to take care of this pet, and you are willing and able to fully support their body and ensure that they aren't going to be injured and they're going to be in a safe environment whenever you handle them, by all means. These little guys are such wonderful little pets. They are literally so cute. Come here. Where are you? You're hiding in my hair. See, when I grab her, support her little tummy and her legs. Ta-da! This is how you handle a leopard gecko very, very nicely. Yeah. She's cute. So cute. Appreciate it. So, with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Appreciate it. They appreciate it. Every time you watch, you get us closer to our 1,000 subscribers and getting monetized, and that way we can rescue more of these guys. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. We appreciate it so, so much, and thank you so much for watching. Remember, always do right by your animals, and I hope you have a wonderful day and happy holidays. Bye, guys.